My name is David Carvala. I live in Barcelona in Catalonia, and I'm an activist in Unite Against Fascism and Racism here in Catalonia and part of the international network World Against Racism and Fascism. Unite Against Fascism and Racism here, UCFR, brings together very diverse people and organizations, over 700 organizations, in a joint struggle against racism and the far right. So there's all sorts of people involved, whether from trade unions, left parties, Muslim organizations, LGBT organizations, Roma people, women's organizations. We have a shared interest in working together against racism and against the far right, and also in the point that these two problems are related, that the rise of the far right worsens the situation of racism, and state racism makes it easier for the far right to grow. I've been involved in this sort of struggle since the 1970s, when I lived in Britain and I got involved in the Anti-Nazi League, which was a broad movement against the then National Front in Britain, which was then a lot stronger than the French National Front. Living in Catalonia for now a long time, about 15 years ago we started building Unite Against Fascism and Racism here in the face of a growing threat from the far right in Catalonia. And for the last 10 years we've been building the international network World Against Racism and Fascism, which now exists in, more than a dozen countries, mainly in Europe, but also increasingly outside Europe. An important thing for people to bear in mind is something maybe obvious, that racism and far right are a very serious threat and a growing threat, and a threat to everybody. Of course, they attack migrants, they attack LGBT people, but then they attack all women's rights, they attack workers' rights. So one way or another, it's an attack on the vast majority of ordinary people in Europe and across the world. So that means we have a common interest in fighting against fascism and against racism. Whether you're black or white, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're gay or straight, it's a joint struggle that we need to work together while recognizing we might have differences on other issues. So those who are interested in getting involved in this activity, in this struggle, in Catalonia, get involved in Unite Against Fascism and Racism as UCFR.cat. And in other countries, you can look on the website worldagainstracism.org and see if there's a movement in your country, get in touch with them. And if there isn't, think about trying to help set one up. Get in touch with people in your country or wherever you live. And also you could get in touch with worldagainstracism.org. There's a contact page there because we need to build more of these sort of movements. The backlash we've had, there has been opposition obviously from the far right, but also other right-wing politicians who are not fascist, but given the choice would prefer the far right to left. We've had all sorts of problems of different sorts. This July, 8 of us from my neighborhood here in Barcelona, Raval, were taken to court by the State Prosecution Service for hate crimes, accused of hate crimes for protesting against the far-right Vox. And we're still waiting for the sentence on that court case. So in the end, they did recognize that protesting against Vox was not a hate crime. We've been attacked in the right-wing media, of course, and there's been some confusion on the left, but also most left-wing forces support the united struggle against fascism and racism, and there's progressive journalists that support them as well. So it's not an easy struggle when you see on the news about how the far right are growing here, they're growing there. But it's important to remember that those of us who are against fascism and racism are the majority, and that there are good examples of successes against the far right. Just this summer, there were the horrible scenes of racist pogroms in Britain, but then just days later, people coming out massively onto the streets to protest against them. Thousands of people in different cities, hundreds of people in smaller cities, protesting against the far right. And so it's examples like that, and there's other examples from around the world, whether it's in France or Germany, big protests against the far right, or Greece, where they even managed to put the neo-Nazis in prison. As a majority, we can win. So what do we ask from governments in the European Union? Well, we call on them to end the deaths on the borders, tens of thousands of people dying in the Mediterranean. There has to be safe passage for migrants and asylum seekers. That's actually international law. And they should also stop normalising the far right, stop treating Maloney from a fascist party as if she was just another politician, stop regarding Le Pen as just another option. So these are important things. I don't have much faith in European governments, but that's what they should be doing. Just to insist that those of us against racism and fascism are the majority. And so if we organise together, with all our differences between them, with all our diversity, we can beat the fascists.